He cheated on his wife and abandoned their daughter, but the other woman left him penniless. Dear viewers, welcome to our channel. Subscribe to receive more stories every day. Thomas sat at the head of the table in his opulent dining room, the glow of the crystal chandelier casting a golden hue on the polished wood. Across from him sat Cassandra, her laughter like a melody, effortlessly charming everyone in the room. It had been a year since Thomas had left his modest life with Sarah and their infant daughter, Lily, for Cassandra, a wealthy socialite whose beauty matched her riches. For Thomas, it felt like a dream come true, a life of luxury without limits. Sarah, meanwhile, had been left with nothing. When Thomas walked out, he took more than just their shared savings. He took her sense of security and the future she'd envisioned for their family. The day he left, carrying his suitcase and his cold indifference, he hadn't even looked back. "You're too plain, Sarah," he had said. "I need someone who matches my ambition." With a newborn cradled in her arms, Sarah had watched him drive away, her heart heavy and her future uncertain. Left with little more than a small rented apartment and her determination, she knew the road ahead would be grueling. Thomas quickly acclimated to his newfound lifestyle. Cassandra's wealth opened doors he had only dreamed of. Lavish parties, exclusive yacht trips, and business deals struck over champagne became his norm. At first, he felt untouchable, riding high on the social ladder alongside Cassandra. But cracks began to form. Cassandra's charm came with sharp edges. Her expectations were high, and her tolerance for failure was non-existent. Over time, Thomas's business ventures, emboldened by her financial backing, began to falter. Deals that once seemed promising turned sour, and his once prized reputation began to erode. Despite his growing failures, Thomas clung to Cassandra's wealth like a lifeline. However, Cassandra was no fool. She began distancing herself, quietly withdrawing her financial support while keeping up appearances for their social circle. Meanwhile, Sarah worked tirelessly to provide for Lily. Nights were spent balancing freelance writing gigs and crafting handmade greeting cards, which she sold at local markets. Though the earnings were meager, Sarah poured her heart into her work, determined to create a better life for her daughter. Her turning point came during a local fair where a customer complimented her cards. "You have a gift," the woman had said, handing over a business card. The woman turned out to be a buyer for a prominent boutique chain, and soon Sarah's cards were being sold in stores across the state. Sarah's small business grew steadily. With each milestone, she felt her confidence bloom. While she hadn't forgotten Thomas's betrayal, her focus remained on Lily and their future. Every success was a quiet triumph over the man who had left her behind. 2 years after their whirlwind romance began, Cassandra delivered the final blow. Over a candlelit dinner that Thomas thought was meant to celebrate his birthday, Cassandra announced she was ending their relationship. "You've become a liability, Thomas," she said coolly, swirling her wine. "I won't let you drag me down with you." By the time Thomas realized what was happening, it was too late. Cassandra had already transferred joint assets into her name, leaving him penniless and facing mounting debts from failed business ventures. Thomas, now abandoned and humiliated, spiraled into despair. His calls to Cassandra went unanswered, and his once vibrant social circle evaporated overnight. For the first time in years, Thomas was forced to confront the consequences of his choices. Homeless and desperate, Thomas found himself thinking of Sarah and Lily. Guilt gnawed at him as memories of their life together resurfaced. The warmth of their modest home, the way Sarah used to encourage him, and Lily's innocent giggles, they had all been replaced by a cold, empty existence. He decided to track them down, hoping for forgiveness and a chance to rebuild what he had thrown away. Armed with nothing but an old photo of Sarah and Lily, Thomas boarded a bus bound for the small town they had moved to after he left. As he arrived, standing outside a cozy bakery with Sarah's name painted on the sign, He braced himself for the encounter. Little did he know, the woman he once dismissed as too plain had transformed into a force to be reckoned with. Thomas stood outside the bakery, his heart pounding as he read the sign again. Lily's Loaves, handmade with heart. The name struck him like a hammer. His daughter's name, etched onto the window, was a stark reminder of the life he had abandoned. The scent of fresh bread and cinnamon wafted from inside, pulling at memories he hadn't allowed himself to confront in years. The last time he had seen Lily, she had been wrapped in a pink blanket, her tiny fingers clutching Sarah's hand. He had brushed it all aside then, convincing himself he was making the right choice. Now, penniless and broken, he wondered if Sarah would even let him through the door. The bakery was bustling with activity. Shelves were lined with artisan breads, pastries, and handmade cards displayed in neat racks. A chalkboard above the counter listed a menu, and a line of customers chatted as they waited. Behind the counter stood Sarah. Her hair was pulled into a loose bun, her face glowing with the satisfaction of someone who had carved a life of her own. She wore an apron with the bakery's name embroidered on it, her movements efficient and confident as she served customers. Thomas lingered near the door, unsure how to approach. His eyes scanned the room, taking in the photos on the wall. One caught his attention, a picture of Sarah holding Lily, now a bright-eyed toddler. They were standing in front of the bakery's grand opening banner, both smiling radiantly. Sarah noticed him before he could speak. Her expression froze for a moment, and then her brows furrowed in a mix of shock and guarded disbelief. "Thomas?" she asked, her voice steady but cold. The chatter in the bakery hushed as curious customers turned to see the man standing awkwardly near the entrance. Thomas stepped forward, his throat dry. "Sarah." "I didn't know where else to go." Sarah folded her arms, her gaze unwavering. "You have some nerve showing up here," she said. Her voice was calm, but the underlying tension was unmistakable. "What do you want?" Thomas hesitated, feeling the weight of every eye in the room. "I made a mistake," he began, his voice cracking. "I was wrong to leave. I need to make things right." Sarah's eyes narrowed. "Now you want to make things right? After all these years? After you abandoned me and Lily for another woman?" The room seemed to shrink as silence fell. Thomas fumbled for words but found none. Finally, Sarah spoke again, her voice laced with bitter resolve. "This isn't the time or place. Wait outside. I'll talk to you after I close." An hour later, as the last customer left and Sarah locked the door, she motioned for Thomas to sit at one of the small tables. She poured herself a cup of coffee but didn't offer him one. Thomas noticed her hand trembling slightly as she set the cup down. "Start talking," she said, her tone firm. Thomas poured out his story. How Cassandra had left him, how he had lost everything, how he regretted every decision that had brought him to this moment. He spoke of the guilt that consumed him and how he wanted to be part of Lily's life. When he finished, Sarah sat in silence, her gaze piercing. Finally she spoke. "You don't get to waltz back into our lives because your world fell apart. Do you have any idea how hard it was to raise Lily on my own? To rebuild my life while you lived in luxury? I know I don't deserve your forgiveness," Thomas said, his voice barely above a whisper. "But I'm asking for it anyway. For Lily's sake." Sarah leaned back, crossing her arms. "Do you even know Lily? She's 6 now. She likes to draw, loves strawberry ice cream, and she's terrified of thunder. You missed her first steps, her first words. You weren't there for her, Thomas. I was." Thomas listened as Sarah recounted her journey. After he left, she had been at her lowest point, working multiple jobs while caring for a newborn. She spoke of the moment she wanted to give up, only to find strength in Lily's laughter or the determination in her own heart. When her handmade cards gained attention, she saw an opportunity to start a business. The bakery followed shortly after, becoming a community favorite. Every brick, every loaf of bread, and every customer who walked through the door was a testament to Sarah's resilience. "Do you know what kept me going?" Sarah asked, her voice steady. "It wasn't anger at you, though I had plenty of that. It was Lily. She deserved better. And I was going to give it to her." Thomas felt a pang of shame so deep it was almost unbearable. He had underestimated Sarah, dismissed her as ordinary, but here she was, a woman who had not only survived but thrived. "Can I at least meet her?" Thomas asked hesitantly. "I just want to know her." Sarah's expression softened slightly, though her guard remained up. "Lily doesn't know who you are," she said. "I didn't want her to grow up hating you, but I wasn't going to lie to her either. If you want to meet her, it'll be on my terms. And only if she wants to." Thomas nodded, grateful for even the smallest chance. "Thank you," he said sincerely. But as he left the bakery that evening, he couldn't shake the feeling that he had only scratched the surface of what Sarah had become. Something about the way she carried herself, the confidence in her voice, it hinted at more. Thomas suspected that Sarah's success ran deeper than he realized, and he wondered if he was truly prepared to face the consequences of his actions. The next morning, Thomas stood outside the bakery again, this time with a bouquet of lilies he had picked up at a nearby market. He rehearsed what he might say to Lily if Sarah allowed them to meet. But as he waited, doubts clawed at him. Could he truly rebuild what he had destroyed? Inside the bakery, Sarah sat at her office desk, her hands hovering over her laptop. She had spent the night thinking about Thomas's request. Part of her wanted to deny him outright. He had caused her so much pain. But another part, the one that had worked tirelessly to give Lily the best possible life, considered the possibility that Lily deserved the chance to know her father, if only to understand where she came from. Later that day, Sarah brought Lily into the bakery after school. The little girl's auburn curls bounced as she skipped through the door, her backpack slung over one shoulder. "Mama, is that the man you were talking about?" she asked, pointing to Thomas, who stood awkwardly by the counter. Sarah knelt beside Lily, holding her hands. "Yes, sweetheart. This is Thomas. She paused, choosing her words carefully. "He's someone who would like to get to know you." Lily tilted her head, studying Thomas with wide, curious eyes. "Hi," she said simply, clutching her mother's hand tightly. Thomas crouched to her level, his heart pounding. "Hi, Lily. I'm your dad." Lily's expression didn't change. "You're the one who left us." Sarah's breath hitched, and Thomas flinched as if struck. He hadn't expected her to be so direct. "Yes," he admitted softly. "And I'm so sorry. I made a terrible mistake, and I want to try to make it right." Lily looked to Sarah, who nodded encouragingly. "Okay," she said. "But I don't know you yet." Her words, simple and honest, hit Thomas harder than any scorn. "I'd like to change that," he said earnestly. "If it's okay with you." Over the next few weeks, Sarah allowed Thomas to spend short periods of time with Lily under her supervision. They started small, reading books together at the bakery, drawing pictures, or playing games. Lily was cautious but curious, and though she didn't yet call him Dad, she began to warm up to him. For Thomas, these moments were bittersweet. He marveled at Lily's bright mind and infectious laugh, but mourned the years he had missed. Watching her interact with Sarah, he saw the depth of the bond they shared. It was a bond he could never hope to replicate, though he was determined to earn a place in Lily's life. One afternoon, as Thomas cleaned up after helping Lily color at one of the bakery tables, a man in a tailored suit walked in. He approached Sarah, who was at the counter, and handed her a clipboard. "The final papers are ready for your signature, Ms. Warren," he said. Thomas frowned, puzzled. Sarah noticed his confusion and turned to him with a measured expression. "You're probably wondering what that's about," she said, setting the clipboard aside. I've been working on expanding the bakery. This is for the purchase of a second location. A second location? Thomas asked, impressed. That's amazing, Sarah. Congratulations. Sarah nodded but didn't elaborate. Instead, she gestured toward the office. There's something I want to show you. Inside, the office walls were adorned with framed magazine covers, news clippings, and certificates. Thomas's eyes widened as he took in the titles. From Scratch, The Inspiring Story of Lily's Loaves, Entrepreneur of the Year, and The Power of Perseverance. Sarah Warren's Journey. This is all you? Thomas asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Yes, Sarah said, her tone even. When you left, I had no choice but to build a life for myself and Lily. It wasn't easy, but it was worth every struggle. Thomas turned to her, his face pale. Why didn't you tell me you'd become so successful? Sarah's eyes hardened. Because it's not about you, Thomas. Everything I've built was for Lily and me. You don't get to waltz back into our lives and reap the rewards of what we've fought for. Thomas's initial awe gave way to shame. I don't want anything from you, he said, his voice trembling. I just want a chance to be part of Lily's life. Sarah regarded him for a long moment. That's not up to me. It's up to her. But I'll tell you this. If you want to be in her life, you'll need to prove that you've changed. Words won't cut it, Thomas. Actions will. Thomas nodded, determination flickering in his eyes. I'll do whatever it takes. Months passed, and Thomas worked tirelessly to rebuild his life. He found a modest job and attended therapy to address the choices that had led him to this point. Slowly, he began to mend his relationship with Lily, though he knew it would take years to earn her full trust. Sarah watched from a distance, both protective of Lily and cautiously hopeful for Thomas. She didn't forgive him easily, but she respected the effort he was making. One evening, as Lily prepared for bed, she handed Thomas a drawing she had made. It was a picture of a man, a woman, and a little girl holding hands. This is us, she said simply. Tears welled in Thomas's eyes as he looked at the drawing. It wasn't a perfect resolution, but it was a start. And for the first time in years, he felt a glimmer of hope for the future. Dear viewers, thank you for watching. If you like this story, please subscribe to our channel to receive more stories every day. Share with us what you think of this story.